Great. Good morning to you.
Excellent, excellent. Good. Thank you for having me. It's fun to be back. Uh, I think our last conversation was perfect. It just flows so well, and I'm glad to be here again.
Yeah, so your people are just like flooding it now too. Um, yeah, how have you been?
I have been great.
Yeah,
I'm starting to breathe. For the
great.
last couple of years, it was challenging, but we're coming back. We're coming back.
Yes.
How about yourself? How have you been?
Yeah, good as well. Like it's funny. There's no we I started my business, well, the studio, this physical studio during COVID. So every day I'm learning how it flows and different things are happening. So last week, for example, I had one, two, three, I think three people who just found me on Google, like cold, and they're just like
Right.
looking for a Pilates studio. And I'm not used to that because I've done so much of my work through referrals and friends of friends. So like having like a actual cold stranger, I haven't had that in a while, right? Like, I mean, like the
Right.
business has just grown through like a friend of a friend so like everything has been sort of like a warm lead, right? Like you never have someone who doesn't know you, doesn't know Pilates, doesn't know your space. I don't, how are you with that? Like, do you get that happening to you often?
Oh, I get that. Yes, that happens all the time. And I
Okay,
I
cool.
like what you were saying earlier, in regards to as trainers, we're more than just trainers. It's we're entrepreneurs. You said we're entrepreneurs. Yes, absolutely. And we're salespeople. I mean, we got to sell our product. And sometimes
Yes.
when you have a stranger out of nowhere that you don't know, you know, their experience, their background, and you want to have them as a client because that's part of your business. You want your business to grow. You got to
Yes.
work, not just to teach, the system, but you
Yes.
also have to meet them halfway, and whatever that halfway may be. So
Yes.
sometimes you have to
Yes.
be a psychiatrist. I mean, there's so many
Yeah.
things that you have to be to to really,
So
yes,
true.
to,
For those in the chat, just write down all the hats you need to wear as you're introducing people to this work. Because you said it there, like you're a psychologist and you're kind of reading them. You have to know your work. And the thing that came to me too is like teaching style. Like you almost have to read how does this person learn, right? So I mean, there may be clients where you have to get down and demonstrate every single exercise, and there's people who can
absolutely,
follow a verbal cue, and people who aren't going to get it. If you're demonstrating, you need to physically, okay, like lift up here, turn like this, reach
right,
from here.
exactly, right. You have to use all forms of cueing, whether it's visual, whether it's, tactile, like you said.
Mm,
Some people like imagery, so sometimes you have to be creative in you know
yes,
because tactile doesn't work, showing doesn't work. So it's like you have to be
yes,
creative. You have to
yeah.
be an artist too doing this
You got to
thing,
be an
right?
artist. Absolutely. I have to say too, Saul, that's one of the things that I've learned a lot over these conversations is how much I have to access that art side of me, right? Because like unlike many of the people that we work with here, like not having a dancer background, not being from that artsy world, like as a straight athlete, I want to throw the athletic stuff, the technical stuff, the cerebral stuff at it, and uh, the imagery works. And I'm so impressed is not the word, but like I love when I have people who are can use imagery in a fantastic way where you're in a class and they give you some word picture and you're like, oh, I could totally see that. Oh wow, the exercise feels different now. Like that is like that's art.
That's a craft, absolutely. Yes.
Yes. Yeah,
uh,
that's good. Hi, Sonia.
hey, Sonia, how are you? She was the one
Um,
that introduced us. No,
I
yes,
know.
yes,
Yeah, it's
yes.
actually, I was gonna say, Sonia, if you have a sec, I'm gonna bring you on. If you have like 30 seconds, give me a thumbs up if you can join us here on the screen for a moment before Saul and I jump in, dive deep here. But I'd love to have you on for a quick moment because I was gonna say that actually.
Right.
But so if she's freeing out a second, I'll just say it with her on the screen. Yeah, join us if you
Yes,
can.
of course. Yeah. I remember you came on and you guys were having a conversation, and by the way, 7 o'clock in the morning, I'm already on my second client. So that's why a
Yes.
lot of times I can't, come in and watch your show, which is so interesting all the time.
No, I appreciate that. Okay, let me see if I'm gonna invite her in. I don't know if she can or not, but
Yes.
just press just decline if you can. But I don't know if she's with clients right now or not. But
Probably.
it's different now, right? Like now that everyone's kind of back to work and stuff. But
We're back to work, yes.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
do enjoy in-person teaching, I have to say. For me,
yes,
that's
it's still
it
the
beats
pinnacle,
me.
right?
Yes, absolutely. Good
Good
morning.
morning.
Hey, I can come on for just a little bit. I was just telling my coworkers, I was like, I'm about to talk to some people, but don't think that I'm talking to myself. So, hello,
um,
Mr. Choza. How are you?
Hello, I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing good, doing good,
Excellent.
doing
Yes.
good.
We're
Yeah.
just talk yes.
no,
We were
go ahead,
just
please.
talking about how as a business person we have to use many hats,
Oh,
we're
yeah.
salespeople, right? We are
Mm-hmm.
psychiatrists, whether we like it or not. I mean, sometimes you have to read the person and just figure out how we can communicate with people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah. So anyway, we were,
Yeah, and just saying too, Sonia, thank you for introducing us because
I
when
didn't even know that. I didn't even know that
okay, so
was the
I'll share
case.
I'll recap the story and also for all the newbies in the chat right now too. When I started doing these core conversations, I was just basically saying to my wife Alex, I'm just going to come on at 10 o'clock every single day and just ask people what they're doing, when are they showing their online classes and just have conversation. And
Mm-hmm.
Sonia and I knew each other from before then, so she joined me on the chat and the live, and she saw Saul Choza pop up in the comment section. She's like, "You need to talk to him." So,
Oh, did I? Wow, I don't
oh
even
yeah,
remember.
yeah.
So, so who?
Yeah.
Okay.
So she's like, you need to talk to him. So I invited him to join me, and it's 7 o'clock on the West Coast. So he showed up with his toque on, and we had this great little chat.
Uh,
And then after I came offline, everybody, we had this fantastic conversation. I went on Google and just checked out who Sal Shoza is, and I was like,
hmm.
this is a big dog. This guy knows his
Yeah.
stuff.
And he's quite
He
humble. He
and
doesn't,
he's
what I will say
so
about Saul,
humble.
and we've never met in person or
No.
no,
anything.
not yet, not
And
yet.
believe it or not, Martin and I have only met once in
Mm-mm.
person, but it's as if we've known each other forever because we've just had conversations.
Yes.
I feel
Um,
the same way. Yes.
yeah. But
Yeah.
I know we tried to, like, when you came up here to work with Cynthia, I was just like, okay, we're gonna try to, but it's never happened.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, what I will say about you, Saul, is that one, you put up some really great content, and from one classical teacher to another, I really appreciate the fact that um, you make yourself accessible. You're not on here trying to tell people, well, oh my God, you don't do blah, 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 so you're not this. You just do what you've been taught. This is what you love. This is you know, your classical teacher like I am. We like the classical work, but, we also understand people are out here teaching Pilates too. And Mari, I met her once years ago, right before. Anyway, I won't even talk about it on here, but I got a chance to meet her, and she was quite wonderful, and just everything you could possibly imagine about her. That she's is very approachable. She wasn't Hollywood, like many of these instructors out here. She was very just friendly. She taught an excellent class that I took at True Pilates. I think they were raising money for St. Jude's. I don't know if they do that anymore. But
Hmm.
Cynthia Shipley, when she was there, had invited me there, and I met a lot of the folks out here in the industry. And she
Hmm.
was just great. She taught a nice little class or whatever, little bitty thing,
Yeah.
jumping around, energetic, and didn't even know until later that she is my grand diva, Sarita Allen's best friend. I found that
Oh
out
my
years
God,
later.
Mm.
yes.
A
Hmm.
beautiful
Yes.
relationship.
They did.
Um,
They did.
yeah, but you never know when you meet these sort of what I call Hollywood instructors, whether they're going to be really nice or approachable or not. And she was one of those people that I thought was really nice and approachable. I only saw her on TV,
Right.
and her
But she was
videos, but
very, yes, she was very down to earth and would talk to
Makes
anybody
sense. Yes.
and always giving very, very, yes, very inclusive. She was a very special person to me.
hmm actually,
Hmm.
one of my good friends, Monica Stevenson, was in her video years ago. One of her videos, I found
Uh-huh.
out.
Right.
Monica's in my group, and we were just having a conversation. We had worked together for a couple of years, and she was like,
There's
"Yeah,
Leslie.
I was in Mari's one of Mari's videos, or a couple of her videos. I think when she was in LA, and Monica may have still been dancing at that point." And I
Uh-huh.
was like, "Oh my God, you're like a superstar."
Yeah. But I think that's
Yeah,
the thing too, right? And we were talking about these. Yes, we love Sonia. And with Saul
Yes, we
too. Like,
yeah.
do.
Some do, some
there's
don't.
Oh.
well, and that's funny. Let me say my first point, and that ties into my second point. Uh, the authenticity, Saul, that you present, like from our first conversation, and just being really transparent about who you are and your lived experience as we had further
hmm
conversations as well. Like it just adds to just the authenticity and the
hmm
credibility and the respect that you have in the industry. And both of you are just real people. Um, yeah,
Can I say
just
one other thing about Saul is the other thing that I really love about you is that, Mari she was a big deal, you know, but and we all know obviously that you were, like you were one of her people, one of her sons,
yes.
and but what you haven't done is you haven't made yourself into this like well, I work with Mari Windsor. In fact, I don't know anyone who did that
Hmm.
with her. Um, Everyone else, I've seen that, but you didn't do that. You could have. You were like, well, and I ran,
Yes.
and I did this, and blah blah
Hmm.
blah. But you're just like, you're a part of her life. She was a part of yours. You learned so much from her. You continue her legacy, but just in a way where it's not so much, about who you're connected to,
Yes.
because
Right.
after a while,
Right.
those people that we respect and, our mentors and stuff, like they're gonna leave this earth. So then what do you have left? You just,
Hmm.
again, you have yourself left. That's it.
Exactly.
So you
Right.
have to build your own legacy. So
Yes.
Right.
I feel like from my observation with you that
Yes.
is what I have seen, and that's what I wish
Thank you.
many
Right.
people did the same thing.
Right. And I
Absolutely.
think this is what our conversation is going to be about today is finding your own voice.
Yes.
Because,
Hmm
it's great that you have a lineage, but, you know, what are you saying? What are you trying to say? What are you conveying to your students,
hmm
If you just regurgitate something that was passed on to you, it has no substance. It has no weight. So
Right.
it is important as teachers that we find our own voice. And I think
hmm
I'm sorry, I just went into it, but yes, I think
Yeah.
that's
Exactly.
very important. Uh-huh.
Yes. Yeah.
hmm Yeah, that's
Yeah, and
absolutely true because I think what we have done, and we can speak on this as it relates to classical teachers, because all three of us are. One, how lineage has been pushed, and that if you don't come from a specific lineage, that you're not really, what are you really doing with your life? Um, but also, like I said, you know, those people are not going to be here with us anymore, and we cannot use their lineage to
Right.
teach the next group of students. Yes,
Right.
are they going to be historical facts or whatever? Yes, that's good. But
Yes.
you and I and Martin, we're creating our own lineage, right? And so
Right.
those people are gone. And so we have to create a whole new um, environment for teachers versus what they did back then. Because
I
isn't there stuff?
agree.
There's probably stuff that that Mari did or business practices that she did that you would not do because one,
Absolutely.
Climate.
it's a different time. Yep,
Yes.
different
Yes.
students, or maybe
Mm-hmm.
you just like what, I didn't necessarily agree with that. Then it didn't kill anybody, didn't send anybody to jail or whatever, but it's not something
Right.
I would do. You know,
Right.
so
Yes.
but it's also not you. It wouldn't be genuinely you. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Right.
Totally. Totally. Yes. I agree. Yes.
Yeah.
100%. Yes.
Hmm.
I love we're having this conversation, all us three together. It's
I
very
know,
special.
right?
Hmm.
Yes. It really is. Feels good. Feels really good. Hmm.
Yes, that's so good.
Yeah.
So I just, yeah, and just because I saw Sonya pop up, I was like, okay, this is how this started. Everybody, so I
That's just
figured,
so funny.
Yes.
I don't even
It's a
remember
full
that, but
circle
I.
now.
yeah, it's
Well, it
full
was very
circle.
early in the morning. Literally, I was in bed, and Martin, you asked me. He's like, "Saul, you want to join us?" And literally, I just went into the closet, put on a beanie, and there I was.
Sounds like what I do. Of course, now
Right.
I'm working now back in social work, but I wasn't. I was in the middle of anything, and I was like, "Oh, I'll jump on." And I never really
Yeah.
jumped. I've never really had like this kind of conversation with Saul. We've had conversations in the DMs, and like he's
Right.
responded like in comments and stuff. We both follow each other, but we never really like had a conversation. So it's a great, it's a nice, wonderful mashup
Yeah.
here of black
If
and
you get
brown
it
people.
while you're chained to a desk there, check out our conversation that we had last year, 2 years ago actually. So like, and
Oh, was it two
Yes.
years ago? Wow, I
two
didn't realize
years
it was
ago.
that long ago.
Yeah, I just on the link I just saw on YouTube. It's like 2 years ago
Hmm.
today, or not
Didn't you have
today.
an
Like
anniversary for core conversations recently?
yes,
Was that
yeah.
June, I think,
I think it might have been June.
or
I gotta look.
July?
I kind of lost track of them now. Like we're up in
Hmm.
like the 450, 460 range of
Yeah,
episodes. Like it's a lot. Yeah.
because I remember our conversation about it. And
Hmm.
Hmm.
do you remember you also? I guess you kind of did like a big one with Grotz. Do you remember that?
Oh, that week. Yes.
Hmm.
Yes. There's. Yeah. I think it was
Yeah.
right. It's so funny, because I think um, our conversation. We'll leave that alone. That Saul and I had was right after that, and
Hmm.
I think I was pretty raw coming out of that week too. Some of the situations that happened. So this was one of those conversations. I remember that too. Like this
Hmm.
conversation, a conversation that I had with Jason Williams as well was very comforting. Like there's people
Yeah.
that I have like personally connected with that even
Hmm.
though like we haven't had these face to face conversations, like you're embraced by the way that you interact with people.
Hmm.
You're drawn to their authenticity and they become safe people for you, and not that other people aren't safe, but you find that
Yeah.
safety and that connection. And
Hmm.
yeah, yeah, so I found refuge in both of you at times, so I appreciate you both for that.
Wow, it's been
Thank
two
you.
years. I
Thank you.
can't believe it.
Yes.
It seemed like the time went by so fast.
Yeah, it
That's
did.
awesome. Well, I appreciate y'all letting me come on and
Hmm.
just have this short conversation with you. And actually, the person who asked the question actually is a former coworker of mine. We used to work together. That's the homie. So you can reach out to me and ask me that question, and I can answer that for you.
Fair.
So, but yeah, so we don't have to
Okay.
address that. But Saul, it was
Okay.
so good to see you. I feel
It
like
was
I'm
a
actually seeing you
pleasure.
in person. Big virtual
Yes.
hug. Thank you for all that you're doing
Same
out
here.
here in these Pilates streets and stuff like that. Martin, thanks for bringing me on for the 60th time this week. I feel like I've been like jumping on every time. You're like, "Hey, Sonia, can you jump on again?"
Yeah,
It's
So you're
for
like,
just,
sure. I
really?
love it.
Again?
Debbie Robinson's the other one. Debbie's been like my resident go-to people in that. So it's true, right? I might actually
yes.
bring one more person on too if they're still kicking around once you jump off here, Sonia, as
Okay.
well. So
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
absolutely. I will watch the rest later.
Yes.
All right, bye everybody.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
And so, if you can indulge me with one more person, I don't know if she is free, but I saw Leslie Logan jumped in
Okay.
too. I know that
Oh,
you guys were.
Leslie,
Yeah,
my buddy.
she's a
Yes.
our buddy. Leslie, do you want to join us for a moment just to say hi? It's so funny because yeah. Let's see if she's good to go. We'll get her in. It's life is changing, right? And we're just like we're layering in all the different things that we're doing, and we're getting to see what things look like for people in real life, right? Like their post-COVID and their
Right.
pre-COVID lives are now kind of blending together.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, look at you in your beautiful background.
Hey,
Hi guys, this is my morning
where
walk.
are you in the world right now?
Oh, Vegas, Vegas. My roots are so planted, y'all. Like people getting me out of my town is really hard. I'm gonna be honest.
I
um,
hear
How's the
that.
rain? Can you guys get rain like what was it, like something ridiculous a couple of days ago?
we had rain Monday. I in my neighborhood we had rain Monday through I think almost Friday. We might have missed it on Tuesday. But it's monsoon. Like my palm tree's been halfway over. It is insane. And then I'll text you guys a lightning video of just 1 minute in front of my house, just like lightning going off.
Ooh,
I lived in LA for like what 14 years, and then like no, I
Yeah.
don't know inclement weather. So and then it lasts like 10 minutes and it moves on, and it's just like that's all. But there was like
Yeah.
4 inches of water left, So,
right.
anyways,
Wow.
so
It's like
it's a little
Thailand
humid today. It
monsoon.
feels like Thailand right now.
Yeah.
So
Crazy.
it's so good to see your boys' faces, and I loved listening to that conversation with the three of you. I couldn't agree more. I think like
Mm,
it's so. I just want to like say this because as a classical teacher, I remember my first training. We all like literally one of the things they said was just write down what I say. It works.
yeah.
Just write
Right.
down
Yeah,
what I say. It works. And then you don't have to make anything up. And so everyone's just writing
right.
down scripts and memorizing scripts. And then I got to a studio and I went to go teach someone, and I said the exact same thing I learned that made me pass my test. And the woman just looked at me like, what language are you speaking? And I had to like figure out my own voice after I had
Yes.
put on my training. And that was so scary because now my job's on the line, like people are paying money.
Mm,
And so when I just wrapped up my first mentorship, and my biggest thing was that they didn't write down a script. There's no manual. Like, nope. You tell me how you want to get them in there. Did it work? How's that going to look?
Yes.
Like, how can we reduce the amount of words you use, but you don't have to sound like me? And I'm so proud at the end. I was so afraid because how do you control that? I was so afraid. And at the end, they all just did their teaching. They all sound like themselves. And I couldn't be like more proud that they can go on and be themselves and have their own name and
yes.
have their own thing. So if you're watching this and you're like, I don't know what they're talking about, it's okay. But I think it's just so important for people to, here we go, some shade, to have their own voice when they're teaching because they're going to be on their own and people are going to ask them, what does that mean?
Right.
Yes.
Exactly. It is so true. And I think when you have your own voice, people gravitate towards you. They
Yes.
trust you because no matter what you were taught, if it's not in your essence, if you can't reproduce it through your own scope of
Mhm.
understanding, then it
Yes.
has no value. And it's just,
Right.
Yes.
yeah, it's just
Yeah.
empty
Yeah.
space. Hmm.
And putting some color to this find your own voice piece. There's something I'll catch that comment after. There's something to be said about when you're finding your voice. Like there are some elements that are going to sound like everybody else, but the finding your voice piece is in you placing emphasis on the things that are important to you, and then
Yes.
the way that resonates with the people that are in front of you is what makes it truly your voice.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. And the more, I think the more information you have, the bigger scope you develop, and you're able to take things that connect with what what you are as a person, what you've
Right.
experienced as a person. Because
Right.
Yeah.
all three of us come from different backgrounds. right?
Mm,
And so
sure.
even movement, we experience movement completely different. And
Yes.
Yeah.
it's only valuable when you have as much information as possible, and you can look at the work in various prisms.
Like from,
Is
yeah,
that
or like
right?
from
Is
different
that the,
perspectives.
right? Exactly.
Yeah.
As a
I think
like,
also,
yeah. Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. I was just gonna say, I think that also comes if you're like someone like me. I wasn't a dancer, so I felt so weird because back when I became a teacher, not being a dancer was one of the rarest. Like I was
Yes.
like a unicorn. And I was like, really? You know?
Yeah.
Now that's not the case. Thank goodness. But I remember I ask my clients a lot what they were feeling because if they were a
Mm,
hypermobile body, I felt like I could use my own experience. But for my NFL players, right? We have a different. So I think like if you're hearing what Saul's saying, you're like, how many trainings do I have to do? It's not even that. You can get information from the bodies in front of you. You can ask them where they're feeling it and
yes.
what words are they using, and then you can kind of put it with your own stuff and start to really use it with people. So we don't have to do 17 trainings, although I think we all have mentorships and teacher training programs, so hey, but but like it's
Hmm.
really, I think that there's ways to get the information that you're searching for that's right in front of you.
Right.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Yes, I agree.
That continual pursuit of learning. That's what one of our earlier conversations, Saul and I, was that sense of like, are you committed to learning? Are you learning from somewhere? It's like not necessarily you don't have to have a master's degree behind your name, but are you continually on a learning journey as your clients are growing, so you're growing with them, and that's paramount.
Absolutely, I agree 100%. Yes. Hmm.
So, but Leslie, we just brought you on just to say that you're awesome, and we saw you in the chat, so we wanted to say hi. And I know that you all know each other,
I,
so I wanted to just give a moment to give flowers to my friends as we do this core
I'm
conversation thing day in, day out.
I'm so glad I saw my DMs pop up on my phone. I'm usually just like
Yes,
enjoying the sunrise. So,
yes.
anyways, boy, you guys are so good to see you, and
Good to see you.
I hope I get to squeeze some of you guys soon in real life. You know, Vegas is a really great place to travel to. I'm just saying. All right, go have fun. I can't wait to hear the rest of the combo.
All right,
Love you.
take care.
Bye-bye.
So, it's interesting. I'm learning this find your voice thing again in another context right now too. So
Okay.
like as I'm running for city council, I'm catching myself in this place where I'm listening to people say things, and I'm like, yes, I agree with you. 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 And I'm hearing different perspectives and all these things, but then I haven't actually put out my thought on certain things. I haven't let my personality be seen on certain things. I haven't put my signature on the way that I'm doing this. And what I'm recognizing is that finding your voice, everybody, is about letting your voice be heard, having the courage to put your voice out there, to layer in your perspective, your flair, your style, your color on that which you know.
Yes, 100%. I agree. Um, but you have to take risk. I mean, you have to
Yes.
really put yourself out there. By the way,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a very shy person, believe it or not. For me,
Yeah.
it's to be with you here right now, it takes a lot of effort.
Really?
Yes, but it is something, if you truly want to harness your voice, you have to speak up. And
Yes.
I mean, you can agree with so many people. And by the way, you can flip the coin. You can see both sides. I think you and I are very open-minded people that we can
Mm.
see both sides. But what is it that we, in our hearts, in our essence, what is it that we truly believe? And do we have the
Yes.
courage to be able to speak up?
Right.
So that's where the voice comes to be powerful. And I think it's
Absolutely.
important, right? It's important that we try little steps here and there. For instance,
Yes.
like my core continuum on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I not only teach, but I also dedicate 15 to 10 minutes for people to start expressing what it is they're understanding, or how is it that they're looking at the work, or
Yes.
do they have questions? And I think
Mm.
it's not just teaching, but can you verbalize things? And
Yes.
that's when you become that much more powerful, right?
Yes.
Because it's great when you have all this information here. So what are you going to
Yes.
do with it now? You know?
Right. Yes. Well, that's a big step, right? And let's just say, oh, I missed those. But that's the big step, that step of courage, because people, until at that point, people don't know what you actually know, right? Like we're talking
Right.
about with Pilates, like I can just give you the order all day, but like, what do I really know? Or am I just regurgitating what someone else gave me?
Right. And I think unfortunately, we have a lot of teachers that do that. And, I don't know if you know, lately, our studio somehow has turned into, a hub for teachers. I have
Okay.
core continuum twice a week, and, teachers come in and work out, and we talk about, the
Cool.
work, right? And I give
Yes.
them different ideas of how to look at the work, and
I
I
like that
always preface
idea.
it, yes, I always preface it by saying, I don't know everything. I'm just
Yes.
like you, looking for my voice, and
Yes.
this is what I'm passing on to you. It is your
Yes.
responsibility not only to digest what I've given you, but also
Hmm.
look around. It's like go take
Hmm.
from someone else, or pick up a
Yes.
book and just really find other find other ways of communicating what I'm communicating.
Yes. And if I could add to that, there's one of my colleagues here in the studio or in the building is a fantastic physiotherapist. And he knows ART and he has all these different multidisciplinary approach. And he gave one of my clients an exercise that looks like that looks like you're doing the sidekick series in Pilates. So it's a certain exercise, your hips on a certain angle, your foot's on a certain angle to do this exercise. And I watched her do it and the benefit it was having. And now what I do is I layer that into sidekick series for all of my clients.
Right.
So I picked up something from a different health practitioner that made sense in everybody that's tried it. And now it's part of the sidekick series. When I'm teaching it classical Pilates, I'll layer that in for people that I know that have specific hip issues and want to have different muscle activations and stuff. And I got them from physiotherapy.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. And
We're allowed to do that.
I 100%, because listen, yes, let me clarify this. We are allowed to do that as long as we understand the rules.
I left that out there for you to put that line in. How's that?
And maybe rules is not the right word.
Framework.
Framework, yes, or the blueprint. I think we can't forget the blueprint.
Yes.
It's important that we understand there's certain laws. There's certain laws of gravity. There's certain laws of movement. And I think when we understand them, then yes, we
You're
can
free
do,
to move.
yes, right. But if we're just doing, somebody just mentioned earlier, choreography versus teaching. I think that was Swan.
Yes.
Right, Swan. Right.
Swansea. Yes.
Right. Yes. Yes. There's a difference between choreography. If I'm just throwing something because I think it looks cute, or it looks great to the eye, I'm really not teaching. I'm just giving a choreography. But like you said, if I understand that, if I understand this movement is creating new neural
pathways and all those things.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yes.
So yes, by all means, absolutely. I just finished a animal flow workshop that I took, And there's so many similarities between that and Pilates. And,
For
you know,
sure.
sometimes the reformer might create too much instability. So why
Mm.
not, you know, bring knees off or whatever on the floor so the client can understand it. That's like animal flow right there, you know?
Right. Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Do you remember me saying this in our last conversation about memorize nothing, understand everything?
Yes. Yes.
And I feel like that is still a guiding principle for me. And for those who missed that last time, I had a teacher in grade 11 or 12 who was a philosophy, a physics teacher, and he invented a component that's on every refrigerator in North America. Like, he's absolutely brilliant. And because he was so brilliant, he was a very difficult teacher to learn from because everything was way up here and it just didn't make sense to most people. So he would kind of calm us down and he would say that, like, you don't have to memorize all these things. Memorize nothing. Understand everything. Understand the principles and how it flows and where it comes from. And if you can understand it, then you'll be able to figure out how things go instead of just memorizing it. And that's kind of how he got us to learn. And I see that how that works in this Pilates space too. You know, if I understand exercises and flow in order, then I can make up my understanding of exercises flow in order because the guardrails are way over here and there's still lots of room to play.
Yes. There is definitely lots of room to play. Yes, I agree, 100%. Um, yeah, yeah. What I was going to say, I think if we understand progression, which is so important, and the reason why we do certain things in a beginner system or intermediate system or advanced system, then we can play.
Yes.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Like and like for instance, you know, I don't even talk about core, by the way, when I teach Pilates.
No?
No. I mean, I
Do
understand
tell
what core
why.
is.
For sure.
Why?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, because think about this. Think about this. We would not be standing right now or sitting down if we were not using our core, right?
Right, right.
What's creating our core to activate is overload, right?
Yes.
The overload that's happening right now, it's gravity. So we're
Yes.
working against gravity, right?
Right.
When we go on to a reformer, right, something has to happen. Some part of your core system has to work for you to be able to push those springs,
Yes.
right? So
Yes.
I think at a beginner state, it's like trying to explain all, you know, what core is. You're not allowing the person to actually feel the work.
Yes. 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 Yeah. Yeah.
So you're imposing ideas that the body's probably not ready. So why not just have them move?
Move.
Yes. And eventually, once they get to an intermediate, you know, level, it's like, oh, let's talk about core. So all these things that you've been doing, guess what? This is what's happening. Now they have some reference
Yes.
they can connect to.
That, you know, it's interesting you say that. Like, I'm sure someone could come in here and talk about neural learning and motor pathways and all those different things, in the sense that if you have them moving first, then they're not kind of cluttering their brain with understanding all the elements of everything that's happening. Because I mean, you and I know this, that like we could start with 100, and you could unpack the 100 in so many different ways, and have them and not change their movement, but change what they're thinking about, and the exercise feels different.
Yes. Right.
So if we can complicate it too much at the beginning, or we can get them moving and let them free their mind of understanding what it looks like, and then have them look at different points of emphasis throughout the exercise to get to what work they need within their own body.
Right. Genius. Right?
Yes. There you go. There's your this is like deep thinking moment. Fun
But
stuff.
yes. I Because if you really think about it, we don't. Joseph Pilates didn't create just one apparatus. Yeah.
Right.
There's the armchair, there's the wonder chair, there's the high chair. I mean, you have all these pieces of apparatus that are specific for specific connections.
Yes.
Right?
I wouldn't have thought about it that way, but you're right. Exactly. Yes.
I mean, I could only imagine, for example, Joseph Pilates teaching the footwork, and something didn't click with a client. And he's like, erase that. I got to come up with something else. The foot corrector came into me.
Yes.
It's something.
Yes.
It's a unilateral exercise. He can have more control over it. He can have the people standing because that's what we relate to the most as adults. As babies, yes, right, we're crawling, we're doing all that stuff.
Yes.
But as adults, we have a better understanding of standing than crawling, or right, exactly. So anyway,
Yes.
that's my interpretation of what Joseph might have been thinking at the time when he was creating all these pieces of equipment. A high chair. Oh, this person doesn't have the ability to use the legs. Maybe we'll do this, or we'll do a step up. Yeah.
Well, and actually, if we could just, that kind of ties into something I've been experiencing recently too. With one of my new clients, one of my athletes is 10 years old, right? So now I can take him through some pieces of the work in order so that he has it in his body and stuff like that. But there's times that I just let him play, and I'll let him like use the tower right here. I'll let him just hook up anything wherever he likes and just let him just do stuff. And every now and then I'm like, that's an exercise. One more. You know what I mean? Because we understand movement so that when he does something, he has set something up, and he's just playing. I'm like, that's a legit exercise. Or I'm like, I have a 60-year-old that would actually benefit from what you just made up right now, sort of thing. Like, I can see how there's different connections that can be made when we just start to just play and move from a place of understanding principles or from a place of just play.
Right. Isn't that the way we first became fit? Was just by playing? Right? We had no gyms at age 2, 3, 4, but somehow we got our mechanics going just by playing.
Right.
Right.
Well, it's so funny. Sorry, go ahead. I had a different thought. No, finish your thought first. I'll circle back around to it. I wrote it down so I don't lose it.
Well, I love young athletes. I love to work out young athletes because they're not sorry to use this word, but the way I see it, it's like they're not contaminated by life.
Wow.
Because we all have histories. We hold a lot of history in our bodies.
Yes.
I just had a client who was a gymnast. She's in her 60s, and footwork is a very challenging exercise because of all the pounding and landing on her toes. Somehow she managed to just land on her toes and not her whole foot. So in a sense, I mean, I hate to use the word, but it just makes sense. She's contaminated. Her body's been contaminated by this constant pounding on her feet.
Yes.
But an athlete, a 12-year-old athlete, I mean, that's like they're just discovering movement. And let me tell you, the way they do a reformer, the way they perform a reformer, to me, it's like butter. I don't have to give them that many cues. I mean, I had a kid who now is at Loyola High School. He's an amazing football player. But when he first started working with me, he just went into that rowing series. Boom, no big deal. He was just like moving. I'm like, oh my God, this is what it should look like.
This is what it's supposed to look like.
Exactly what it should look like.
That's
Right.
Yeah.
But as you get older, what's that?
No, that makes me laugh because those are the moments when like they get on, they do it naturally. And I'm like, that's going to take me years to make it look like that. And that was his first try. Like,
Right,
sometimes.
but it's
Yeah,
because we have history. You know, we've been
hmm,
pounding our bodies, you know, whether through sports, dance, or whatever it
yeah,
else that we do. You know,
right,
it's, you
right.
know, we could have had a great fall in when we were, you know, in our 20s, and that becomes a history in our bodies, and it creates certain limitations. Like for instance, like I was surfing when I was 17, 19, and that that left a, you know, an imbalance in my spine. So for me, the extensions are very challenging, you know, so that
Mm,
I'm not going to be able to do that gorgeous one that, you know, maybe somebody that is at ABT can do. Yeah, I'm
right.
just
Yeah,
says it's just not going to happen.
right. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So the
Hmm.
word I was gonna throw earlier was race, like competition racing. Like when we were kids, we'd ride our bikes and race. It's a foot race or whatever. So there's an element of competition, healthy competition, that was there when we were younger. That I don't know how we layer that into our Pilates. Like we don't have Pilates Olympics or anything, but that I think that was also an element of play, was competing against ourselves and competing against others to better ourselves, right? So I just
Hmm.
gotta throw that out there. That was one of the key motivators for me growing up. Is just like everything was a race. Like my kids, everything is a race. Like you know what I mean? Like
Right. And by the way,
yeah,
I was a very sore loser when I was a little kid and raced my neighbors
yeah.
in the neighborhood. Um, but yes, so what do you think happens with the race as we get older? Do you still feel like, are you competing with yourself when you're doing Pilates, or
That's yeah, yeah. Well, I think that's one of those things. I turn it inside to be like, okay, this is me versus me. And the interesting thing about Pilates versus my personal training background is that it's tough to quantitate Pilates, because it's not like I bench pressed 185 and now this week I'm going to bench press 205 and the week after that it'll be 225. I can't say, okay, well, I I use whatever it is. Like you can't quantify it in the same way because there's no numbers to, other than the number of springs that you use for an exercise. So I, the measure is different, but it's just like, how does it feel in my body? How difficult was this exercise compared to last week? Or actually, no, no. I know there's exercises that some of my teachers have given me in the past that when they were teaching me, I couldn't do. And
yes,
and I
exactly.
and actually just maybe about a month and a half ago, I did an exercise that one of my teachers gave me, and I gave him a WhatsApp message that said I nailed it this morning, and it's just
Hmm.
like, good for you, like 2 years later, right? Like um, that sort of thing. So yeah, so the competition is against myself and achieving things, getting to certain exercises that I figure just wasn't for me.
Hmm.
Maybe with time it is, right? Like just being consistent with the work.
Right. Well, you know, there is definitely a race in Pilates, and I think we've
Mm,
lost that. We truly have lost the race, you know, in terms of competition.
yes.
And I do have that race within myself every once in a while. For instance, knee stretches. Back in the day, knee stretches, it wasn't just 10 repetitions and you're done. You know,
Yes.
it was 10 rounded, 10 flat or arch.
Arch.
Uh, I'm sorry, that's what it is now. But then it was like
Yes.
20, 20, 20 plus knees off, um, single knee with extension. I mean, it was just like
Yes.
there was like one exercise built onto another. And by
Yes.
the end of that class, let me tell you, our legs were dead.
Mm,
But even now, it's like the whole idea is that we're supposed to finish our reformer workout, whether it's a beginners or super advanced, in 45 minutes. Now, can you
yes.
finish your workout in 45 minutes? So
Mm,
that's the race within yourself. So
yes.
the competitive part, it's still there. I think we're just sort of have lost it a little bit.
Oh, for sure. I wrote that down because that's my challenge for this week, to get to that, because I know that this is what happens. Full disclosure, this is me. I start doing the work and then I notice that something isn't flowing like what it did yesterday. Stop, get off, do some other exercise, do some mobility, play, check my phone, check a message, respond to a message, say hi to someone, and my workout's done.
No, then you're not in the race. You've lost. Yeah. Yeah, and then that's what I tell all my students. It's like, okay, we finished this class in 50 minutes. You were supposed to finish it in 45. Now, what is it that we can do to make that happen for you? Yeah.
Yes.
So I still play the race with my clients, and I remind them that 45 minutes, it's your workout.
Yes.
15 minutes or 10 minutes, it's
yes.
to focus on specific things that your body needs.
Yes. Speaking of race, we got 1:39 minutes before this this live.
Okay.
Ends. So I'll end it now by saying thank you once again for just being a great digital friend. I hope to connect with and just embrace at some point in real life, because you've been a source of joy for me as well, man. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Anytime you're in LA or anytime you want to come to LA, please give you a call. We're here.
Absolutely.
We're open for anybody that wants to visit us.
Yes. Let's get it. All right.
Great.
Thank you. And thanks to everyone who joined us today. Thanks, Leslie and Sonia, for popping in and saying hello. Swansea Pilates, looking forward to having you back on again. And yeah, that is it. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.
All right. Take care.
Take care.